stories of brave men. Josheb-Basshebeth was a manly man. He struck down 800 men by himself with a spear. Eleazar was in battle when the whole army of Israel retreated. He stayed, and he fought for such a long time that the sword froze to his hand. Benihad jumped into a snowy pit on a snowy day for no reason, really, and killed a lion. Who does that? I mean, these are like manly men. Read in verse 13 through 16. During the harvest time, 3 of the 30 chief men came down to David at the cave of Adullam, while a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. At that time, David was in the stronghold, and the Philistine garrison was at Bethlehem. David longed for water and said, "Oh, that someone would get me a drink of water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem." So the 3 mighty men broke through the Philistine lines, drew water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem, and carried it back to David. But he refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out before the Lord. Alright, so in 2 Samuel 23, the Philistines are at war with the Israelites. That happens a lot in the Bible. The Israelites just won a huge battle, as they always do, and so David's out in the cave, and he's really thirsty, like after the basketball practice, when it hurts to breathe, you're so thirsty. And so David's like, "Man, I just want some of that water I used to drink when I was a kid." And so the guys are like, "We're going to go get it." And so Adullam, the cave of Adullam, is 12 miles from Bethlehem. So they run 12 miles through this desert, and they have to get there, and they have to fight off the Philistines while getting the water. And there's only 3 of them, and they're fighting off an army. It's amazing. And so they run back, and they give the water to David, but he pours it out. And so the guys are like, "Dude, we just got you that water. What are you doing?" So they didn't really say that, but so the question is, why did they do that? It wasn't because David was like, "You guys, go get me water." It's not like they're like, "It'd be fun today. Let's go kill the Philistines in Bethlehem and get some water." Well, the only reason they did it is because they loved their king. Their love brought them to action. Now, there's a difference between when you love someone and you love someone. We're not talking about romantic love. They didn't like David. I think we need to change the definition of love when we think about love in the Bible, because when Jesus says, "Love your neighbor as yourself," he didn't say, love everybody like that in that way. He was like, care about them enough to do something about it. Because in the Bible, every time we see love, it's always followed by action. When Jesus washes his disciples' feet, when Jacob betrays Esau, and then 10 years later comes back to Esau, and his brother just gives him a big hug. And when Moses kills the Egyptian for a fellow Hebrew, and when Moses is pleading for the whole nation of Israel when God's about to destroy them. Abraham in the desert when he's going to go save Lot from the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. 1 John 3:18 says it like this: "Dear children, let us not love with words or tongues, but with action and truth." Love isn't just being this happy guy, or love isn't, love's really easy when it's like that, because all you have to do is be in a good mood, get 8 hours of sleep, maybe have a cup of coffee, and you're good to go. It's not like that, though, because biblically, love is always followed by action. 3 years ago, at ICTC, it's like the Illinois CIY, kind of smaller. We were on break, and it's in Springfield, and we're kind of just going through the streets downtown. We just had some Quiznos, and it was way overpriced, as it always is. And we walked past this homeless person. His name was Coffee. I always like that name. I don't know why. He had this box, and he was playing his guitar. And he had this kazoo type thing, but it was weird because I think he made it himself. Anyway, his box was full of stuff. It was a Christian conference. People were all giving him stuff, and so there were a few of us just hanging out. And then one guy walks over, and he sits down next to him, and he starts talking to him. And after a while, we had a few others that went and sat by him. But it was just really cool to see that, and we just got to talk to him, and we found out that he'd been homeless since he was 10 or 12, something like that. And when he was young, he got a fever, and he lost his vision because he was so sick, and his parents died, and so he'd been all alone. So he hadn't had anybody that cared about him for about 40 years. So we sat there and we were just talking about him, talking about his life, and by the end of it, we got him laughing. And it was just great to see that he knew that people were caring about him. I guess, what does this mean for everyone? You know, how can you guys love? Well, 3 quick things. First thing, how do you love those around you? When the dishwasher's full, when the person forgets their wallet and they're like, "Oh, I can't pay for this." Just last week, there was the lady carrying the Domino's box down the hall, right? And it's kind of like the blue thing, and she's like, she didn't want to have trouble because it's like foam, but still, I saw it and I was like, I could ask her, "Hey, can I carry that for you?" Because what a witness I would be at a Christian school. But instead I was like, well, if I asked, she'd probably be like, "Oh no, it's okay." Like, we need to be a people that's like serving, you know, and it's not always fun. Paul put it like this in Romans: "Let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. For he who loves his fellow man has fulfilled the law. The commandments, do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not covet, and whatever other commandment there may be, are summed up in this one rule: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm to its neighbor, therefore love is the fulfillment of the law." Love is about other people. We should be serving, we should be carrying pizza boxes, we should be doing whatever we can for the other person. Secondly, how do we serve ourselves? This is kind of harder because we never really think about this because we are such people about ourselves. A few weeks ago, this is a funny story actually. I was working at Monocle's, and it was one of those really cold nights, and it was snowing out a little bit, and we're about closed, and this guy who we'll call Jeff, he comes in, and he's been dating this girl who we'll call Jane for a little more than 2 years. And so he goes up to her and he goes, "Hey Jane, you might want to turn your car on because it's getting kind of cold out and the windows are frosted." And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of nice that he told me about that." And she goes, "I have a ton of stuff up here to do. Can you do it for me?" And he goes, "I just carried this garbage. It was really heavy." And then he didn't stop there. He took out his keys from his pocket and he said, "Oh, and can you turn mine on too?" And I was like, what a bad boyfriend. And I was like, that is not love at all. That is completely selfish. In 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter, it says, just real quick, it says, "Love is not rude, love is not selfish." Jeff was not being loving to Jane, obviously. It was selfish and rude. We're not called to like get the best for us and what we can get for ourselves, but we're called to give the best. Along with that comes my third point. How are we serving those in need? James 2. "Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to him, 'Go, I wish you well, keep warm and well fed,' but does nothing about his physical needs, what good is it?" In 1 John 3:17 it says, "If anyone has material possessions and sees his brother in need but has no pity on him, how can the love of God be in him?" There are people in need all around us. People like coffee that we're just ignoring. Go to the Jesus Coffee House, you see tons of downtown Normal and Bloomington people all in need. And if we're going to be a people who call ourselves God's people, we need to be a people who are serving and loving. Andy Stanley put it like this: "Every person you see is a person Jesus died for." Now this isn't some like incredible, wow, I can't believe that, I never heard that. We all know this, but when I heard this the first time, I thought about it all the time, and I couldn't look at people the same way, because you don't look at them for the person that they are, but you look at the person that Jesus loves. You know, you don't see individuals, you see the people that Jesus loves. 1 John 4:19. We love because he first loved us. We don't love people because it's the Christian thing to do. We love people because Jesus loved first. Jesus served first. We need to be a people who are caring and serving. Let's be a people of action. Thanks.
Boom!